That's going to bring in NBC 10 Boston political commentator Sue O'Connell. Sue, in every presidential election over the past, let's say, 20 years or so, there's always talk of the October surprise. I think the one that stands out in most people's minds is the Hillary Clinton email scandal. The thing that comes along this late in the campaign can change everything. It's been a busy 3 days. So what have you sort of taken to heart as something that could alter the trajectory of this race?
So I think, Corey, when this election is in the history books, it'll be pretty clear that just about every week had an October surprise, right? But it does seem that racist, crude, vulgar Trump rally may be the biggest surprise because it's a self-inflicted surprise. And the reaction to the so-called comic Tony Hinchcliffe's racist remarks about Puerto Rico and Latinos may have hand-delivered some voters the reason they were waiting for to vote against Trump or not vote at all. So if that turns out to be true, not since Democratic candidate Gary Hart told reporters in 1987 to follow me around when he was asked if he was having an affair, which he was, a couple of them, has a campaign caused itself such a self-inflicted injury.
All right, so if there's one group anxiously awaiting the results of this election, besides all of us, it's world leaders. Talk about the global interest in the outcome of the race for the White House. And is it all about Trump?
No and yes, right? I think that's the answer to all these questions. Global leaders, of course, they always care about who wins the U.S. race for president. But in this particular time cycle, election cycle, the stakes are very high. Look, we've got the escalating Israeli war against Hamas. We've got the Israeli attack on Hezbollah, the terrorist organization, and their strike on Iran. We've got the ongoing Ukrainian war against the Russian invasion, reports of North Korean troops in Russia, which, of course, puts South Korea on alert, and China, just China, doing what China does. So that's just the short list. Additionally, if Trump wins, that could signal to other political groups around the world that this authoritarian strongman approach could be successful in their country. And I think that worries leaders of democracies.
All right, so last question. Historically speaking, Donald Trump, we know, typically doesn't let any criticism of him go without responding to it. But some have argued it seems like he's struggling to deal with the accusations that he's a Nazi or Hitler. It really seems to have struck a nerve. Do attacks like that work, though, on voters, or is it just about throwing Trump off his game in the last days of this election?
So, Corey, I grew up being told never to compare someone to Hitler or call them a Nazi, because that was the absolute worst possible comparison that someone could make. And as a commentator, myself and others have twisted ourselves into knots, especially during his 2016 campaign and the Trump presidency, to try not to ever use the words Hitler or Nazi when Trump was saying or doing things that were actually ripped right out of the Nazi playbook. But obviously, those days are gone. So Trump has now been forced to say, quote, "I'm not a Nazi, I'm the opposite of a Nazi." So his defense has sort of made it stick more than it would have, and I think voters are actually noticing as they head to the polls.
All right, Sue, thank you very much. Go get us some snacks, because we will be getting you up to speed on the election all this week. We have another live edition of At Issue coming at you tonight. Me, Matt, and Sue going to break down the ballot questions, focusing on the top local races, as well as Trump v. Harris. That's all this week at 7:30 p.m. right here on NBC 10 Boston.